Hi, this is Matthew Solomon, Sales Director at D&B Properties, introducing you to the D&B Dubai and Beyond podcast. I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed colleague and friend, Mr. Yazan Amjad.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to be here.
So before we delve into a few sort of market-based topics and try and educate the listeners and the viewers on where the market's at and what have you, I'd like them to just know a little bit more about Yazan.
My name is Yazan, obviously. I am a senior property consultant at D&B Properties. I specialize in downtown Dubai as an area. I've been working extensively on it for a little under 2 years right now.
Okay.
Predominantly focusing onto the secondary market. Secondary market between buildings that are considerably a mid-value entry point to a high-ticket entry point, and exclusively on buildings that are by Imar, so the downtown, not the business by side of downtown. Been doing this quite often, knew my way around, built some very good relationships with owners, agents, and sellers, and in a nutshell, I think this is what
Good.
in a nutshell I do.
So obviously the market's been booming now since just after COVID, sort of 2020, 2021. How's that affected you in your market? How have you seen things progress?
It's progressed massively. I was even discussing this with another colleague of ours. She had an apartment up for sale and she was trying to price it. It's in Boulevard Heights. They were hovering around a figure, the sellers hovering around a figure, while she's trying to bring it to the market at a specific figure. I had the same apartment, same layout, few floors higher, $1 million below.
Okay.
So the market definitely, when we say, oh, the market is fast, the market increases, it's a definite thing. We see it. Because a lot of those buyers, anyone who's buying into downtown, there is an agenda, and the agenda is not to exit anytime soon.
Yep.
The agenda is to hold it for, I would say, 5 years,
Yep.
or to live in. And if you're living in, you already made yourself comfortable, so you're not really trying to move out. And this causes less supply. With less supply, massive demand, as I'm sure as we've all have seen. This is what is driving mainly the prices now.
Sure.
So year on year, we are seeing 100% increase in some properties.
And how are you finding objections with buyers? Because one thing that I've seen since the prices started to increase and the market starting to sort of get more buoyant is everyone keeps talking about like an impending crash and everything's going to come crashing down. Usually that's a buyer kind of a buyer mentality, so to speak. What's your thoughts and how do you sort of deal with these buyers when they try to convince you or discuss with you the fact that, well, you know, such and such is happening here in the world and it's been going up for too long, the cycle's got to finish, we're in a bubble. How do you deal with those kind of buyers and queries?
Honestly, it's a very fair concern to have. As someone who's living in this region of the world, where there's some conflict happening around, I see it different than how a European or someone from Northern America or maybe Asia or Africa would see it. The first thing that I intend to do is bring to their attention the infrastructure. And what infrastructure I'm talking about is whatever is around this said property, let's say, and how that is developing, how that is feeding the agenda of the government.
Yep.
And while it's being fed by the government, simultaneously you have foreign investments that are feeding the overall agenda of Dubai. Discussing this with them, talking data, talking figures with them, showing them what are some of the international corporates that we have around in commercial areas seems to loosen them a bit into the idea that this region is or does behave differently than other regions around the Middle East, around the United Arab Emirates. And then they start to look into the number of foreign tourists and what is developers trying to do in key areas. Then they start to see the bigger vision that it's a city of growth, it's a city of efficiency, and that it's a city that has its own way of doing things and thinking. I think this loosens them up a bit in a way where they feel more safe, right? And when they start to hear the word of mouth and visit the restaurants and the nightlives and the malls, and they see the number of different peoples and tourists that are around, things feel much more comfortable and familiar.
That's good. You said something to me the other day which I thought was quite apt and particularly interesting, which you were discussing a buyer making an offer and that offer being very close to what the seller's actual walk-away price was, and you said something about, well, I've got a duty to the buyer, and I said, well, you've also got a duty to the seller, and you made a very good point, which I thought was very interesting, which was you also have a duty to the market.
Yes.
Explain a little bit more what you meant by that.
As much as we as agents try to maximize the commission, I think as an agent who has seen a couple of cycles in a key given area, you owe it to the market to bring a product that would still attract future buyers.
Yep.
And that would still allow the buyer to exit.
Yeah.
In a much more comfortable way. So what I meant by I owe it to the market, I owe that the market shouldn't be inflated in a way where it's an unrealistic inflation, unrealistic price that may or may not cause a series of events after, like the butterfly effect, right? And you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it back in the days when you were operating heavily in Palm, where one apartment at a specific series sells for a specific price, then the overall tower wants that price, even though they may or may not qualify for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no, that's it. Because like you say, when I heard you say duty to the market, what I immediately thought, and you pretty much backed me up here, is if we, just to get a deal agreed, so to speak, inflate the price, it just creates the wrong kind of pricing in the market, and it makes it harder for us to do our job, and it makes it a lot harder for us to manage our sellers' expectations further down the line. Something else you clicked on there, which I thought was very cool, was talking about, commission now, and trying to get the right price to maximize our commission. Now, it is a commission-based job in a commission-based industry, so there is an element of that. But one thing I always say to the guys out there, and I'm sure you've heard me say it, is your commission and getting paid should always be a byproduct of the service that you do.
Correct.
And if you don't make it a byproduct of the service that you do, you're doing it the wrong way around. You're going to get caught out. I mean, what do you think?
100%. And I think agents who know how to maximize their commission, when the price is right, obviously, are agents that know their value that they have in a given scenario, let's say. So the value that you present to the seller and the buyer then makes the commission much more sensible for anyone, right? But it also helps you to understand that, no, you deserve that, right? The work that you have been doing, the let's say the reports, the market insights, the different knowledge that you have between towers, the understanding why this series sells for this series sells for that, then all translates into the value, right? And they all want to work with someone who presents more value, right?
We all pay more for luxury things, right? You'll pay more for a Rolex watch than you will for a Casio watch, right? And that isn't just because of the brand, you're buying something better. So if we offer something where we're giving them a good service, an honest service, an ethical service, and ultimately delivering them the price that they want, whether they're a buyer or a seller, then they should be comfortable paying us what we want. Again, we go back to that kind of byproduct thing, but you and I have always been on the same page with things like that. So let's talk a little bit about Q2. I'm just going to read a couple of facts here. Nearly 54,000 real estate transactions in Q2, which is a 22.5 increase compared to the same period last year. We can talk about Q2 in general, but I think a lot of people and agencies doing these kind of things are going to do the same. You're here to talk about yourself and your experiences, and so Yazan, tell us about your Q2.
Thank God it was fantastic, honestly. It was an amazing Q2. It was the byproduct of continuing momentum through Q4 2024 and Q1 2025, and the byproduct of a continuous momentum over there translates to a heavy Q2. Thus, you see the market. I think if you backtrack it a bit, there's a lot of buyers that have a specific financial calendar in mind that they take decisions in. So then you might start to reason with why at that stage of this calendar year, you saw that much increase over Q1. And then you see a lot of people that have incentives of going out and about, either to visit Dubai and see market, right? And then there's a reason where you could say that the market we're waiting for the right time to get the offer, right?
Well, this is it, and this is something that someone said to me before, which was, waiting for the market to hit the bottom is like catching a falling knife. It's quite a cool phrase.
Right.
Yeah, but it's
laid
true.
Down as well.
Nobody knows, and no one can time it right. So what I find you get a lot in a moving market is you're going to get people that maybe looked in December, January, who felt the market might change for one reason or the other, then they realised it hasn't, so they get FOMO, as people say. And that's when they come back on the radar of good agents like yourself, and you can take them back out and find them the right property.
I think it's a series of events that happens 100%, where there's a cycle both the sellers and buyers get into. I would say it's a 6-week cycle, where they start at specific expectation, then it goes either directions depending on the value that, again, you're bringing to either parties. In some cases it can latch on, close prior to a 6-week, and sometimes it closes at mark 6 weeks. So a lot of those sellers they probably started a couple of quarters ago, and now they reached a point where it's amicable, the agreements are amicable, thus it translates. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of setting the expectation a couple of dates, a couple of months ago, and then you reached a point.
Well, that's exactly it. And like you said, discussing Q2 and referencing back to the hard work in sort of December, Jan. I'm sure if you looked into it in more detail, you'll probably find a lot of the people that you sold to and properties that you sold, certainly when I was an agent, these are people that you speak to for like months, if not years. When I get the new starters out there asking for my advice on, when they're calling out and speaking to sellers, I always say, don't ask them if it's for sale or rent. Don't try and get the quick fix and the quick win. So if you can get them to commit to speaking to you for a prolonged period of time, whereby you can actually give them market updates, market reports, valuations on their property, whatever it may be, so you're giving them value and you're also creating a relationship over time, then when they're ready to sell, it's, I don't want to say easy, but it's quite efficient to actually bring them to market, bring them buyers and do business.
Right, especially now where every 2 calls that you receive is from another agent. They really are on the defense the majority of their time. The sellers or the owners. So whatever your work was, now we want to top it even more up and become even more, let's say, diligent with what you bring or the conversation that you have. And I believe this is how trust is made, relationships are formed.
So a lot of agents, they'll bring a property to the market at the wrong price. They will agree on an inflated price with the seller just to agree to get the listing. I mean, that is never the right way to go about it. I understand the logic why they would want to do it, but straight out the gate, they're doing it in the wrong way because they've mismanaged their sellers' expectations. They're, like you were saying earlier about duty to the market, they're not being dutiful to the market because they're inflating the prices, even if it's just with one listing. And from their own perspective, they're making their own job harder because they're not going to get decent inquiries. And when it does come down to negotiating a price and they say to the seller, hey, I know it's on the market for 4 million, but I've got an offer for 3.5. The seller is probably not going to entertain that offer, even if it is in line with the market, because they'll be wanting their 4 mil. And by an agent sending out a Form A at that price and telling a seller he will work on it, what he's actually done is told the seller that he believes in that price. So when I was an agent, what I would do is I would see agents list in my area sort of over the market. I would speak to the seller and I would say, look, in my opinion, that isn't the right price, but fair play if you want to work with this guy, continue to work with him for a few weeks, let me know how it goes. And then I just keep in touch over a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then when the time is right, once the seller's had low offers, no offers, a low amount of viewings, whatever it might be, then I would like swoop in and be like, look, this guy's not really managed your expectations correct. And then you put it on the market at the right price and
the magic happens there.
The magic happens. Really is as simple as that.
Right. It is definitely like that. And I think have a bigger duty on understanding really how to price it and to give those reports, because it's empirical for your job, empirical for how you lead with your sellers, the expectations is set. I wouldn't have said it any better, but it genuinely is like that. It's unfortunate because I think one of the challenges that a lot of people have is it's still a wild west type of approach to multiple things we have here, where there's no right way of doing things. There's no playbook. No. So I think if I would give the agents benefit of the doubt, it's they're trying what they think they know what works out. But 100%, you have a big duty to actually bring properties to the market at the right price, just because of the less headache and hassle that would go through with it.
At the end of the day, we're asking these people, buyers and sellers, to pay us a fee.
Right.
We go back to the byproduct comment, but at the end of the day, without commission, we don't have a pay slip. Without pay slips, we can't live, right?
We wouldn't have done this podcast.
Well, there you go. So why would we make our lives more difficult, right?
100%.
I mean, it's a difficult enough job as it stands, and it's a difficult enough and competitive enough market, so why make it even...
But I think it stems out of... There is still a bit of a very competitive edge to the market right now, where you don't have a lot of sellers that are willing to list the properties, right? And you still have a lot of agencies that are giving harsh KPIs on their agents, right? Number of listings per week, number of listings per month.
Is this aimed at me?
Right. Same KPIs, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is where it becomes jumping. But the counterintuitively, you are still better off bringing properties to the market at the right price, even if it takes you 2-3 weeks, over bringing something right now just because your director or your boss says so, but it doesn't sell in 2 to 3 weeks or even a month. So I think standing by your diligence, by your duty, by what you stand for as a consultant, makes your work easier on the long run, but kind of seems difficult on the hard run first.
I know what you mean. Going back to something you said there, which is quite interesting, because it's something I deal with on a day-to-day basis with the guys out there. Why do you think sellers, not all sellers, but a lot of sellers, are reluctant to actually list their properties? Because for me, it makes no sense. If you want to sell something, why whisper? Why make it a dirty little secret? You want to scream about it, especially if you want to maximize your output. So you're in the wild a lot more than me now. You're still a very active agent. What do you think the reason is that sellers are reluctant still?
I think the number one is the increased number of agents that are targeting the sellers. This causes an overwhelming feeling that when you have so many options, you don't know what option or choice to make. So they're being targeted by way too many agents and agencies on a daily basis. So they are reluctant to give it to the wrong person. This is a hindsight. This is what I would like to believe is one of the reasons. I think the second reason is what makes sense is that if you're not binded by a contract A, you can still somewhat say, if I got this offer, I'm free not to take it because it might increase later.
So you think it's more of a mindset because they feel they're bound to a contract, which they can cancel in an instant, by the way, as we all know.
Agreed, but it keeps them free to entertain the idea that, what if I wait a bit more?
Do you know what I think doesn't help? When I was a Palm agent, I would deal with a lot of these sort of off-market pocket listings, as we call them, particularly on the villa side, because there was a real stigma about listing something of a certain value because it cheapens the product. Why would I list on, one of the major portals because it's not an exclusive website? And I understood, but I didn't, because it's like, well, that's how people look for these things.
This is what they're the market.
Where else are they going to find them? But you create a rod for your own back, because I would sell things off market, and so would my colleagues, so would my competitors. So we kind of don't help ourselves. It's almost like, and maybe again it's down to how the market works, but we don't help ourselves. We're almost too efficient sometimes as agents.
Surprisingly, majority of my deals back in 23 was off market, right? And I understand the concept of off market. If I would put myself in their shoes, I would also be defensive in a way. But I'm also realistic that the market itself is the portal. So I think if I would give any owner an advice, irrespective of the area, whether it's downtown or Palm, and I think you can also relate with it. Bringing it to the market is still efficient, but bringing it to the market at the right price with the right agencies and the right agents,
it's crucial.
It's crucial, right?
Yeah.
And I think sellers owe it to themselves to do the due diligence.
Yeah.
Meet with the consultant that you feel comfortable with, sit with them, get to know who they are, who's the agency, what are they doing, and then you decide for yourself. Because yes, it does sell off market, but which I think this is going to segue. I want to ask you a question.
It's fine.
Yeah, which also attracts it to foreign investors, right? And we've seen that. I personally have dealt with a lot of them here in downtown Dubai. So I think my question to you now, how many, if you would scale local investors to foreign investors, back when you were still operating in Palm, how did you see that? Was it more foreign people coming, expats that are investing, or was it more from the local scene, investors from the GCC or the Emirates?
It depends at which stage in my career. So for the first few years, I focused mainly on sort of apartments on the trunk of the Palm, and the majority of the business that you would do there would be end users. My style, and I think my personality, I'd like to think that you agree, is I'd like to think I'm a pretty calm, ethical person. So I found as an agent, I naturally attracted myself to, that kind of regular end user buying their property with a mortgage on the Palm to live in with their, wife, kid and dog and what have you. So majority were expats. I did sell a bunch of stuff to foreign investors. Yields on the Palm aren't that high, same with downtown. So unless you want a trophy asset, it is a little tougher to sell there, because if you want a higher yield, you probably want to go to maybe Business Bay or JBC,
right,
for example. Towards the end of my agent career, when I was working on sort of the villas on the fronts and the more luxury side of things, I found a lot of the people that I sold to were people who were either quite new to Dubai, albeit very wealthy, or people that were coming to Dubai and they wanted to, for want of better words, move their money, invest it in a piece of real estate, a luxury piece of real estate that they could comfortably live in.
Right.
So I kind of saw, just in that one little part of Dubai, over the 9 years I was an agent, I saw, quite a different kind of transition from one type of property and buyer to the opposite end.
Right. I do relate with that a lot as well. I do relate with it because one of the pitches that I used to do is why you need to get a 2-bedroom over a 1-bed is because, especially with those investors, right, who wants to rent out their apartments for the long term. I don't know if this is statistically right. Maybe we can check it later. But I see that there's a lot of singles and early families, so families that are just starting, maybe a wife and her husband, opt into 2 beds to get a 2-bedroom apartment, rent it out, or rent an apartment 2-bedroom, more than they are would, let's say, be interested into renting a 1-bed, right? And just working with the market, seeing how that is, then you start to see, there's a lot of inclination into a 2-bedroom apartment. So back to what we were talking about, a lot of the foreign investors appreciate that, that they want to rent it out. So yeah, I would say.
Depends on what you want, right, and what the property's for. Like I always used to say to people, it's better to have more space than want more space. So it's better to have a 2nd bedroom in case you have a kid, or even if it's just for a few weeks of the year when mum and dad come to visit, you don't have to put them up in a hotel or you sleep on the couch while they sleep in your bedroom.
Right.
But the irony of that, and again this is just my opinion, is that from an investment point of view for a 1-bed, because of that reason, that if you're purchasing as an end user, it would be more recommended to buy a 2 or a 3-bed. I think people who are renting are quite happy to rent a 1-bed. It's temporary accommodation. It might only be there for 1-2 years. And the sort of demographic who would be renting a 1-bed or even a studio is either not ready or not capable yet to make that purchase. So you're effectively going to have a wider pool of clientele who can come and rent your 1-bed as opposed to maybe your 2-bed. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it's just...
No, I think You're right. It is definitely a larger pool of demographics opens up at one bed. But what I've seen in downtown, there's also a hidden larger pool, which is these two beds. I think if anybody that would come to rent out a two bed, they're financially capable to rent out a two bed.
Yeah.
I think just in terms of probability, I don't know, it would increase maybe at a two bed over one beds and whatnot. But yeah, just diversity, different investors, different approaches, different product types and whatnot.
Speaking of diversity, something that I was particularly proud of you that you did in quarter two was you, without even letting me know what was going on, you managed to sell two quite meaty properties outside of the Emirate. So tell me or remind me a little bit more about those two sales.
Yes, meaty indeed. They were in Abu Dhabi, actually, more specifically onto the Saadiyat island, the cultural district over there.
Yeah.
What a beautiful place, Matthew. Honestly,
Yeah.
what a beautiful place. I don't know if you've ever been to the. You look like someone who appreciates art and museums.
I don't know about that.
I'd invite you over there to the Louvre maybe one day. So yeah, it's how it came about. It came really up first from a listing that I had in downtown, and it was again foreign investor who saw himself wanting to live here for the longer run.
Yeah.
And just hearing, talking to them, speaking to them, discussing how it is and how the whole market is, listening to what they really prefer as a way of living, we probed around the idea of Saadiyat or Abu Dhabi, and they went, they visited, they liked the area, they liked the city, they liked the energy of the island specifically. It's a very calm. You feel that there's a there's like a cultural movement over there. One thing led to another. We started to discuss what are some of the opportunities, whether it was ready properties or that are coming to the market or under construction. Soon it became visible, the idea for us. Like we started to understand that it seems that this is the path that we want to go to. It feels right for us. The city, by the way, Abu Dhabi is we talk a lot about Dubai, but Abu Dhabi in terms of infrastructure and what's happening there is uncanny, genuinely. So it all made sense in terms of where the city is heading, the governmental initiatives, the infrastructure, the project itself, the developer, and all of that. And then we narrowed it down to a specific project. The project was by Aldar. I don't know if
I'm aware,
So it was by Aldar, and we then probed around. Okay, so what in the project makes sense to us, what's not, and we ended up with a project over there. Yeah.
Good. So an inquiry on downtown. You asked all the right questions. Not afraid to get in your car and drive a couple of hours.
Right.
It's good agency work, man.
Thank you. I think it's being attentive, honestly, to tiny details. Some of the tiny details, we always think that, there is one approach to things and whatnot, and they want that, therefore a similar product type would then make sense to them. But the reality is a lot of those, especially foreign investors, want to work with someone who can read the market and knows where the market is heading, and has, I don't want to say tricks under their sleeves, but is still aware of the market updates and where the market is, not just in one area, but a couple of different areas. So they are open to it, but just be attentive to their details at least.
No, that's it. Ask all the right questions and listen and think outside of the box.
Just think outside the box, indeed. Think outside the box. Be open to new ideas. They want you to bring those ideas to their attention, to discuss it with them. Don't be afraid of getting a wild card out there. At worst, it would be politely, let's say, rejected. But at best, it would then lead you to a path somewhere over there.
If you don't ask, you don't get.
If you don't ask, you definitely don't get. That's exactly.
So before we wrap things up, I just want to ask Yazan one very key and important question. What advice would you give to a new agent just coming into this market?
Oof. So many things that I would tell anyone new. I think the most obvious advice that I want to give to anyone is really work with the directors and what they've been through. So the experience that they bring is very important for your growth. That's first. Whatever ideas, whatever objectives, whatever KPIs that they're setting, it's a path that has already been
tried and tested.
Exactly. So you're not there to recreate the wheel.
Yeah.
So work with their vision, trust the process. So those are the most most obvious things that I would want to give. The second ones that I would want to give any new agent is specialize. Specialty is key. In a market full of agents that assume they know it all, buyers, clients, investors, people that you want to work with appreciate specialty.
And you'll never know it all, right? If you're not willing to learn and continue to grow and admit that we learn every day.
Exactly. So which leads me to the mentality. Be open to learning ideas. I know entering the real estate industry in Dubai can be daunting in the beginning, because I know there's a lot of people that enter it with financials nearby null. So they're already setting themselves a bit behind. You set yourself even way more behind when you're not willing to adopt and adapt to new ideas. Listen to the experts. They're there for a reason. Stick to a specialty, either whether that will be area, project, cluster. Even if you're in an off plan, I don't think you want to do all the developers. And then be open to new ideas, be open to learn, and just be patient with it. But patience while you're constantly thriving, right?
I like the idea of being impatiently patient.
Yes, I know what you exactly mean.
It's like
So
it's
you want
an
to
oxymoron, but if you can balance the two correctly, so the little bit of impatience kind of allows you to be that extra little bit more hungry and driven than perhaps you would be in your home country, earning a salary and just ticking a box from 9 to 5.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, like I said, patience, because you're not gonna master any craft, especially this, in a
short period of time.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, be patient but impatient and driven at the same time. Stick to the plan, stick to the strategy. Specialize. People want to work with people that specialize. Multiple times, Matthew, I've told you stories where I would walk with clients and buyers just by knowing a transaction that happened, and not necessarily that a transaction that I've did or any one of us that we did, but because we're aware of it, because I'm specializing in a specific
knowledge is power.
Yeah, they appreciate that, right? They want to open up to someone who feels right, and how you feel right by specializing. You become more authentic with your approach.
Cool.
And one last advice, come join us at DNB. Then you'll really become a specialist.
It's probably the best piece of advice he's given you so far tonight, people. So, Yazan, always a pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine.
I'll let you get back out there and...
attack.
I'm not sure about attack, but if you could sell some more houses, that would make me very happy. Even more houses.
I will attack on those houses.
Go on, mate.
Thank you.